Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Gaming Zone. This is the first in a series of these I'm going to be releasing of just audio podcasts, where I'm joined with other people when we go to review this. That way, we can get them out faster and not have to worry about Ed slowing them down for the purposes of video. Joining me for this one is Marcus Shadow.
Sup?
And today we're here to discuss Batman.
We are Batman.
I'm Batman. Had to be done once. Let's get that out the way before the rest of the review. So let's talk about Origins. Batman Arkham Origins.
Mm-hmm.
So this is, first of all, we're gonna do a little different to our normal reviews. We're just gonna give it an overall rating and non-spoilerish description first, and then we can move on to the spoilers. For those of you that don't want to be spoiled that are listening, we'll tell you when to stop listening. So take us away, Marcus. Your rounded up thoughts and score.
Well, I did enjoy this game. However, this game is riddled with issues, which we'll get into. Least of which is the fact that this game was built upon Arkham City, which is not a good thing because it feels too much like Arkham City. They borrowed way too much from it. But the shining point of this game definitely has to be the voice acting. So, if you're a fan of the Arkham series, if you're a fan of Batman in general, if you really hated that schlock that Christopher Nolan put out, play this game. You'll thank me for it later. The voice acting really is that good. And the story's not terrible. It's just we'll get into that.
But it should be worth pointing out Nolan did produce 2 good Batman films. Just
the last one. I was referring to the last one.
I was just making sure before we got riddled with. But The Dark Knight was awesome.
Nope, and putting it out there, my favorite Batman movie is Batman Begins. So yes, but yeah. So the game's okay. It's not great. It didn't really reinvent anything, which was another problem, that it didn't have much innovation. So I'll give it a 6.5 out of 10.
And fair enough. My rounded off thoughts would be there's way too many bugs for what there is. Way too many. When you go online, because it's got multiplayer, the essentially matchmaking system, for lack of a better word, is non-existent.
Yeah, pretty much.
There's no party system, and the online works great. The online's probably the best part when it works. But so yeah, I'd probably give the game probably about 6 out of 10. It's kind of bad. It's kind of bad, but there is a lot of good to the game itself as well at the same time, if that makes sense. So yeah, for those of you that care about spoilers, stop watching now. Okay, so let's go into the story. Your thoughts with the story, Marcus?
I thought it was an interesting idea. I thought they went the wrong direction with it. And Joker, again, really? Seriously? I mean, as cool as it was to kind of see the budding relationship between Joker and Batman, it's like, no, they teased and pushed a Black Mask story, and this is not Black Mask's story at all. And it's like, no, I want Black Mask's story. I want to see how he actually dies. And I want there to be little to no Joker. I mean, we knew Joker was going to be in this one. I was hoping it would kind of be in passing. It would kind of be like an establishment of Joker, as opposed to making him the main villain again. And just,
I agree.
But aside from that, I thought the elements they used, despite the fact it was Joker-centric, I thought was clever, and I thought the story was pretty strong in its own right.
Yeah, when it comes to the Joker, I've mentioned before now, I think they should have done, and they did tease it a little bit in the story mode, they should, or show bits of it, I should say, is they should have had the Red Hood in the game.
Yeah.
They should have had the Red Hood in the game, and have Batman or someone accidentally drop him in the acid. And then after the credits, he can emerge as Joker. Ha 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 ha! Does his laugh. We know he's there. However, they did the enemy they teased in this was Harley, and I thought they did a good job. They set up her becoming Harley. I was like, nice with her, but overall, the story just felt like it didn't need to exist at all. It seemed completely pointless. Because like most of the threat came from stuff like, oh, Bane's learnt Batman's identity, but we know there's a memory loss, so we can kind of see where this is going. Oh, which one's gonna die? Bane, Joker, or Batman? All three are in the other games. No one.
Yeah.
None of this. It felt like it didn't need to exist. It essentially has added nothing.
This is true, and I alluded to this earlier when we spoke, Mole, but they tried to make each of the villains that you face a threat, but they do that by making them seem like a credible threat in the story elements, in the cutscenes. When you actually face them, they're no threat, and that really took me out of it, because I'm like, this is supposed to be Batman starting out. Everybody he faces should be a threat.
Yep.
And don't even get me started on Jim Gordon. Oh my god.
I kind of liked what they did with Gordon.
I hated what they did with Gordon. It was okay by the end of it, but just... the whole bridge sequence just made me lose so much respect for Gordon. I was just like, no, they completely pissed on him in the bridge sequence.
How?
It's like, because to me it felt like Gordon was saying, I don't trust the Batman, so therefore I'm going to risk innocent lives because I don't trust him. You know, because Batman's all like, Gordon, give me access to this so I can go save people. Gordon's like, no, fuck the people. I don't trust you. It's like, really? This guy is telling you to open the door so he can go save people, and you're not going to let him do it? Really?
But at this point, the police department don't trust Batman. He's beat up police officers. As far as they're concerned, he's a villain. They don't know to trust him. This was more establishing the fact Gordon doesn't always have to just put blind faith in Batman. He is his own guy, which he is in the comics and stuff, which is cool. It means it's essentially Batman hadn't earned his trust yet. By the end of this, he's earned his trust. But
I'm not saying
that.
No, go ahead.
But before that, he hadn't earned his trust. From a police standpoint, with who Gordon was, a guy in a mask comes up to you and says, yeah, this is what's going to happen. This is what's going to happen. I'm going to be the hero. But all you've seen from him is him beating up your fellow police officers and possibly being involved in all this shit that's going down. Yeah, you're not going to trust him.
Yeah, but it has less to do with whether he trusts Batman and the fact that more with the fact that the police are supposed to protect the innocent. Batman had already proven and established that he's there to save people. He's not there to harm anyone because he already disarmed one of the bombs and saved the people there. He was or two of the bombs actually, but he had disarmed two of the bombs and he was going to go for a third one, but Gordon had locked the thing down. And it's like, okay, I've disarmed two bombs, saved a bunch of people, let me go save more people. And instead of doing, quote, the right thing, unquote, doing what the police should be doing, which is to protect the people, he's willing to put the innocents in danger just because he doesn't trust the Batman. It's like, you cannot trust the guy and still do the right thing of, I don't trust you, but I can't put the innocent lives in danger, go save them. Which is, and to me, that is how Gordon would act. Even if he didn't trust him, he would and should put the lives of the innocent people first, above the fact that he doesn't trust Batman.
Yeah, but my point was he doesn't know what Batman's going to do with the innocent people. As far as he knows, Batman's a bad guy. Batman could go in there and make it much worse and kill the innocent people. Which, at the end of the bridge scene, Gordon even mentions to Batman, like, Batman fails to press the thing, and Batman mentions to Gordon that, yeah, okay, maybe it was a good thing that you disobeyed me and stuff, and Gordon's like, yeah, at the same time, I shouldn't have done like you mentioned, which means they both learn, like, Batman learned he can depend on people, because Batman didn't even want to depend on the police officers.
Which is true, and I have an issue with that, which I'll get into in a little bit, but it's still, your argument holds very little water because, as I said before, it was already established that Batman didn't hurt anyone. He just saved a train car full of people. Where's your proof that Batman's going to do anything? If anything, there's proof that Batman's going to help the people. He's not going to go in there and try to kill them. Gordon has no proof of the contrary at the moment, because right now all the proof he has is Batman is there trying to save people, and he's being fucking pig-headed and willing to put innocence at risk. And that's my biggest problem with the way they portrayed Gordon, is they portrayed him as a guy who cared more about his pride and more about the fact that they didn't trust the Batman than actually doing his fucking job and saving people. That's the problem I had with Gordon, because he just did not seem, because he's supposed to be the one honest cop on a force full of corrupt cops. He did not seem like an honest cop to me, because he didn't give a shit about the innocent people. That's how Gordon was portrayed. He didn't care about the people of Gotham City.
Yeah, but like I said, at the same time, Batman had just beat up a load of police officers, showing he had no respect for the cops, which means, yeah, Gordon shouldn't respect him. Gordon shouldn't trust him, because the guy doesn't trust police and the guy doesn't respect them. He's a loose cannon.
Right, and I'm not saying he should have trusted him. All I'm saying is, given the proof that Batman so far in this situation hasn't killed anyone, in fact has saved a lot of people, they're innocent people in danger, and Batman seems to be able to get to these locations and disarm these bombs quickly. For the sake of the people, maybe you should let him do that and then deal with him afterwards. Because you can still have him save the people and then Gordon turn around like he did pretty much at the end, where he pulls a gun on him and says, I'm still bringing you in. Because there's still that distrust there, which is fine. That should permeate because it's early enough in the story. I just don't think the character of Gordon, even that early, would put all of that above the safety of the innocent people. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, which is fair enough. Like I said, I understand what you're saying. I just said I personally disagreed with it. I saw it the other way of he was doing it because in his mind that was the best way for the people with the role Batman had been cast, and didn't actually help matters by deliberately casting himself in that role.
True. And that's the other problem I had with the Batman-Gordon relationship, and I don't know what distinct version of the Batman's origin story Rocksteady and by extension WB Games here went with, because they never outright, at least I don't recall if they ever outright showed the murder of the Waynes and what immediately followed that. But I know that in his actual backstory from the comics, it is Lieutenant Gordon who's there to comfort young Bruce Wayne. So Bruce, from that point on, knew that Gordon is a good man and that he can kind of be trusted because he's kind of known him for a lot of his life. And so it was hard for me to believe that Batman would sit here and say not even Gordon can be trusted when Alfred is telling him, you need to trust Captain Gordon, he's a good man. It's like Bruce should know this already. But I don't know what his actual backstory, because if Gordon wasn't the one that comforted him, okay, fair enough, he may not know him. But I can only go on the assumption that is the version of the backstory they're going with.
Yeah, even if they're going with the backstory of that, you could also go with some of the stuff they drew on, like some of the first years of Batman and stuff, where he comes back, and when he's come back and he's now starting off as Batman, he doesn't know that Gordon is the same innocent detective or lieutenant and stuff that tried to comfort him, because he's surrounded by nothing but corrupt people. It stands to reason their corruption may have spread to him. He may be a risk at this point. It's like, let's say you were helped out by an old man or something like that when you were young, Jeff. Or was like when you were young, Marcus.
Mm-hmm.
And then, essentially speaking, you now see him in a Nazi uniform, surrounded by Nazis. Are you going to trust him? You have to wait to see how he acts. So it's more of the detective part of Batman. You know what I mean? Like, because let's not forget, Batman trains with people who teach him to, assess the situation. So it could be more of he's assessing Gordon. And Gordon passes the test by the end of this.
Which is fair enough, and I could deal with that if again wasn't for the fact that the way they portrayed Gordon, in my opinion, basically validated Batman's point of not trusting him. Because really, by that point, I didn't trust Gordon. I was like, wait, he's willing to put those lives in danger because he doesn't trust Batman. Yeah, why would I trust a guy who's not willing to put that shit aside? You know, he could still come after me if he wants. He could still see me as a threat. That's fair enough. But save the people first, then arrest the villain.
Yep. It's one of those things, like I mentioned, they're both equally guilty. Batman has made this whole persona where he beats up police officers, doesn't give a crap, and gives the idea that he's going to murder people, because he even threatened to kill someone in the game a couple of times, due to the fact he wants the criminals to fear him. Fair enough. But to the outside people like the cops, he's just like the criminals, which means Gordon can't trust Batman. Batman looks at Gordon with the detectives, and he can't trust Gordon. They both appear from the outside to be on opposite sides. However, when they get close enough to each other and realize they have a common goal, then they can bond and realize, okay, we're two peas in a bat-shaped pod.
Yeah, we're two sides of the same coin.
Yes.
Yeah, I guess I just didn't like how blunt the dynamic was, and I thought they went the wrong direction with it. But that might come down to personal taste.
Yeah, like I said, I can agree. I can see it both ways, which is cool. But what did you think about some of the other characters?
Bane, they did exceptionally well up until the end. Gee, that seems to be a running theme with Bane, huh?
Kind of, yeah. Well, no. If you're on about the third film, no. Because because of the voice.
Well, aside from the voice, the portrayal was good. But anyway, yeah, they did Bane very well. I'm glad they made him Hispanic. They even brought in one of his minions. They brought in Bird as like a sub-villain, which I thought was kind of nice. I didn't like the fact that he does the move but doesn't actually break Batman's back. I'm like, wow, you just kind of buried Bane. Good job.
I didn't like the fact with the Bane stuff, with, like you mentioned, the breaking Batman's back. And I even mentioned when I was playing this, and then Crispy saw that bit, I mentioned to him that, wait, did he just break him? And it turned out, no, he didn't. I was like, oh. I honestly thought he was going to break him when he lifted him up.
That's what I was like, hoping for.
Yeah, and I was like, oh. And the worst part is, this game did the same thing Arkham Asylum and Arkham City did that just annoy me. Although Arkham City kind of redeemed itself on this factor from one little part.
What's that?
I hate it when they advertise new campaign, Nightfall, new campaign, Joker, new campaign, Nightwing. And you go in there and it's only a campaign for the challenge maps. It's not actually a campaign like a proper story.
Yeah, I hate Rocksteady's loose definition of the word campaign. They need to pick up a dictionary.
Yeah, because that annoys me. Like the first one, Arkham Asylum on PS3, you got to, because I don't think it was on the, I think it wasn't on the 360, the extra bit. I mean,
yeah, the Joker.
You got to play as Joker, and it's like cool. And then you play, it's just challenge maps. It's like ugh. Yeah. Arkham City, I found out I think Nightwing was in it, and so was Robin and stuff. It's like cool. Only for this, and it's like, oh, come on.
And like you said, I hate that they. Oh, go ahead.
Although they did redeem it with Catwoman, which I kind of thought these ones were going to do with Deathstroke, but didn't seem to.
I thought it too. But yeah, like you mentioned, I hate the fact that they pushed it. They advertised it as, Nightwing campaign, Robin campaign, and it's not a campaign. It's like, come on. Stop being such a cock tease.
Yep. Luckily, this time round, one of the DLC seems to be new. They say new story. I'm dreading to see if what they mean by that. If they actually mean a new story or not.
Yeah, no kidding. Let's see, other big main villains. Most of the villains they did okay. Like I said, most of them, almost all of them, just didn't feel like a threat to me once I got in the fight. Bane sort of felt like a threat at some points.
Yep. I also think feel we missed out on having some people in the game, like I mentioned, like Ivy, who had been in the other two, or Catwoman, due to the fact apparently she's in the handheld version. She's in the Blackgate one.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
And yet she's not in this.
I mean, well, and you know, like all the Batman lore and Batman villains. How sad is it when I look down the roster of villains in this game, and one of the only people I can say actually felt like a viable threat to me was Firefly.
Yep.
That's pretty sad.
Although I felt Bane was a threat.
Bane was a threat most of the time. Firefly felt like a threat. My favorite villain, the one I thought they did the best, just because this villain really, of all the villains to me, felt the most threatening, and that was Copperhead. I thought they did her very well.
Yep. I also liked what they did with. It's with I can't remember which other ones they did, but I loved what they did with the Mad Hatter.
His levels were interesting. They're no Scarecrow levels by any stretch of the imagination, but they're beautiful.
No, they're not like the Scarecrow in Arkham Asylum. Mm-hmm. There was nothing quite like that in Arkham City.
No.
The closest to it was the Rezo Ghoul shit of Glide, and this was at least better than that, but not as good as Scarecrow.
No.
However, it was cool that it was optional, and yet it was at the same time a story. It was like optional story.
Yeah. And the biggest high point for me, I didn't get the glitch when I went into his building.
Neither did I. Although I will say I left him till last in case I got the glitch.
Well, it wouldn't have mattered. If you got the glitch, all you have to do is exit the game and restart, because it restarts from a checkpoint.
No.
Really?
According to a lot of people, the checkpoint is going through the portal.
Okay.
When you get the glitch, according to what a load of people were complaining about, every time you load in in the same place inside the black hole in the glitch.
Ooh, I didn't know about that.
You have to erase your save and start over.
If I'd have known that, I would have backed out and copied my save first.
Or done what I didn't, leave it till last, because you're like, okay, at least I completed it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm still missing 2 villains, though, so I don't know who I have yet to unlock. But
now, I will say during this audio podcast as well, worth pointing out, news. I was going to do this for XGR, but it suits here.
Okay.
Coming up, they have announced this week, or possibly next week, depending on their definition, but coming up, there is going to be a patch to address probably a load of the glitches.
Including
they said most of the prominent glitches and errors people have been getting is being addressed via patch.
Good. Now all they need to do is release a reinstall of the multiplayer so it works.
Yeah. But yeah, I just want a party system.
Yes, please. Oh, please, WB, give us a party system.
Yeah, because I want to go in the game with, like, you and say Crispy when he gets the game, or James Phoenix, or Richter and stuff. I want to be able to go in with you guys and not have to go private and hope we get 8 people with the game.
Yeah.
Although going in a private one with 8 people is extremely fun.
It is, and we'll get into that when we talk about multiplayer. But in terms of story, like I said, the story elements surrounding the villains were actually pretty good and pretty interesting, even if they kind of sucked. I also really love the fact that they tried to increase the immersion factor of this game, because one of my favorite parts of the game, and I wish there were more of them than what's in the game, I loved the random murders you came across.
I like that. I liked the detective stuff. That was fun. It made Batman a lot more thinking than, hey, I'm just gonna go and punch a bunch of dudes like he did on that City.
Yeah. Exactly.
Because, as I've mentioned in the past, I'll be honest, City, I didn't like that game as much as Asylum.
Fair enough.
If this game had the glitches fixed, I think it'd be better than City. In terms of gameplay and game.
I can agree.
Not in terms of innovation or new stuff.
No, not at all. Because like I said before, they just basically took City, removed the Arkham off of it, and boom, there's your Arkham Origins.
Yep. Although, like I said, they do tease a couple of villains in this and a couple of characters, which is cool.
Mm-hmm. And of course, Calendar Man still has his cell.
Calendar Man has his cell. They tease the whole Dick thing with the Flying Graysons coming soon. while they do, obviously, like we mentioned, they teased Harley during the police department thing. They tease, oh, what's his name? They tease Two-Face because they mentioned Dent.
Yep.
Also, there's also a poster somewhere in the game. I can't remember where it is, but there's a poster in there for a show with the Man of Many Faces. And it's basically, it looks like with the name and stuff, it looks like it's Clayface.
Nice.
It looks like that's Clayface before he becomes, just before he becomes Clayface, and I like that.
I also love that Riddler in this game is before he becomes Riddler, and he goes under the name Enigma, and only because Batman calls him that. So Batman effectively named his own villain.
Yep. Which, I like that.
I do have to wonder, though, with the timeline of these games, if Barbara Gordon will ever become Batgirl, or if she just jumps straight to Oracle, given the fact that I don't think a lot of time passes between Origins and Asylum.
I say enough time has to pass between the two, though. If it's meant to be, I think it's like, can't remember how many years it is, but it's a few years, which could be enough, because you have to think at the same time, enough time must have passed for Dick to become Robin and then become Nightwing.
True. This is true.
So I'm thinking she's going to become Batgirl, possibly for a short stint, possibly for a year in terms of story, I don't know, but I'd like to see some of those in later games when we get the origin stuff. I'd like to see like a Robin origin story, then maybe then a Batgirl one, and then maybe see like Dick go off on his own, and you could even do Dick going off on his own at the same time Batgirl gets shot.
Yep, and like I said before, one game I'd love to see these guys take a crack at, I'd love to see Dick as a newly minted Nightwing in Bloodhaven.
I'd like that.
But yeah, story's okay if you can get past the fact that they reuse a lot of stuff. Like I said to you, I think I said it to you. I know I said it to Jim. I think if this game had been the first in the series, the story would have been fine. It would have been good. It's the fact that this game is a prequel to two previously established games in the series, I think kind of kills any chance that this story is good.
True. Although I will also say, based on how the game is, there was enough errors in it that it would stop it being good. I mean gameplay wise, there's errors with the glitches and stuff.
Oh, the gameplays, yeah.
There's also a lot more quick time events than some of the other ones too.
Yeah, some of them are okay though, like for some of the fights and stuff, because I noticed some of the fights in here are similar to Lego Marvel.
Yeah.
Which I kind of liked.
Which is fine, but I don't want that in a Batman Arkham game. I want that in a Lego game.
Yeah, well.
It's like I really would have been annoyed if I started to punch Bane and he suddenly started to hulk up and woo you, and then did a leg drop. I'd be pissed. But in a wrestling game, I want to see that.
True. I think we've gone over the story enough here.
Yeah, we've gone over story and we've touched upon gameplay a bit. So let's move on to the rest of the gameplay in terms of single player, non-multiplayer stuff.
If you've played Arkham City, you've played Arkham Origins. For the most part. I did like the addition of the Shocker's Gauntlets, or the Electrocutioner's Gauntlets. That made what otherwise would have just been hair-pulling, annoying, tolerable. Because I will tell you, up until the point I got those gauntlets, fighting like the armored guys, the dudes with the knives, the dudes with the shields, that was just getting on my every last nerves.
See, I will say, we disagree with that. Like I mentioned, I don't like the addition of the shock gloves. It's cool that you can technically tie them, maybe they're a prototype or what he builds, like reverse engineers or whatever, into the armor for Arkham City Armored Edition on Wii U, but I didn't like them. In fact, a couple of times, I know the Crispy was there for this, I refused to use them.
Just fine. You don't have to use them.
Yeah, I refused to use them because, in my opinion, they were a big problem with this game. They made it way too fucking easy. A lot of these games you were meant to be, especially when the game series started off with when the game series started off with Arkham Asylum, it was thinking, it was stealth. We move on to Arkham City, and it's beating up everyone, and it's not really thinking, it's just more casual. And this one, they're like, okay, we realize a lot of casual people liked Arkham City. Let's make it more casual by giving them a one-hit kill button. And it's like,
Yeah.
No, you've ruined your own series. You're making it more progressively easier.
Yeah. Also, like you said before, you said to me when we talked about Arkham Origins before, WB really didn't know what to do with the series, and they were afraid to do something original and take chances. So, like, well, Arkham City's been established. We'll just make it that and make it casual. Just like, no, you don't know. You need to innovate.
Casual.
Yes.
Which, I know, he said Arkham City's casual because some people will probably be fanboys and be like, no, it's not casual, but it was more beat 'em up than Asylum, which I didn't like.
It was. I mean, on one hand, the series had nowhere else to go but toward more combat oriented. Given a lot of people loved the combat system from Arkham Asylum, so it would make sense they would evolve that combat system and focus on it. And B, the fact that they were going to a wider city as opposed to an enclosed asylum. It's like, yeah, you're going to have random thugs on the streets, therefore Batman needs to fight them. Now, I will agree to the extent that he can fight them in City and by extension Origins. Yeah, that's pushing it even for Batman.
See, I disagree. I think the reason they did the more thugs was to give them a more excuse to go beat them up. Because if they'd done a city populated with innocent civilians and people walking around, they could have gone stealth. Point you to Assassin's Creed.
Yeah, if they'd have... Well, I know you hate the term, if they'd have more sandboxed it, yes. But the fact that they were going with Arkham City, you can't have innocent civilians. There are no innocent civilians in Arkham City, aside from people who are living in their homes. Yes,
but I was saying they went that way to make it more beat 'em up.
Yeah.
Because they chose that route. They could have quite easily, with how the story was, they could have gone Arkham. I'm not even saying make it sandbox. Because like they could have done it like this one or Arkham City, where okay, it's kind of sandbox-ish, but it's not too much relying on the sandbox, which I don't like. But they still could have done that route, but they could have kept for stealth. They could have, like, you're running along the rooftops and shit now. Add in some more stealth stuff and I'll have you run along the rooftops. Essentially speaking, Arkham City and Arkham City Origins should have been Assassin's Creed with batarangs.
I can kind of agree with that. Or like Hitman. Because one thing I really loved about the Hitman games, I've only played a couple of them, but one thing especially of the latest one, is that even though each area is somewhat confined, you always have like 4 or 5 different ways to achieve your goal, which you don't really get in the Arkham games. And Batman needs the options. You need to be able to say, okay, how am I going to approach this? Do I just want to walk up and beat his face in, or do I want to, try coming from behind, from above, go in this building, go in that building? No, you can only go where the game tells you to go, so you have no choice but to just jump in and beat his face in.
Yep. It's like, and I know some people that hate that, but I know some people listening, even in the conversation right now, play these games. But I use the Assassin's Creed one as an example because Assassin's Creed came out and Batman Arkham Asylum came out, and everyone agreed Arkham Asylum was a better stealth-based game than that one. And to the point where Assassin's Creed, the series, has seemed to have taken some stuff from the Batman series. Mm-hmm. So why couldn't the Batman series have just done the obvious route and just done what you did bigger? It would have worked.
Honestly, in my honest opinion, what they need to do is keep the combat system they have. Maybe, I would say, revert it closer to what it was in Arkham Asylum, but maybe go between of Asylum and City, because I thought that the combat system was better in City, but it was a little bit on the easier side. It was a little on the unrealistic side of Batman just taking out an entire mob by himself. But take that and combine it with the stealth of Splinter Cell, and that'd be perfect, because I think the stealth in Splinter Cell really would work with Batman, because I can't tell you how many times I was going around the city in Arkham Origins and like going into like the levels, the warehouse and stuff, and just wanting to like break all the lights to induce darkness, because Batman is supposed to be a creature of darkness. And this game, there's nothing but light. Even though he's out at night, it's like there's no darkness. There's no element of using darkness as your friend for stealth. And it's like, that's if anything, that is what Batman is. He's always looking for the shadows. He attacks from the shadows, and that's the same as Sam Fisher, because that's what Sam Fisher does in Splinter Cell.
Yep. In my opinion, what they could have done is split the series.
Okay.
For example, like you mentioned, Splinter Cell. How many Tom Clancy games are there?
Too many.
Yeah, they could have easily split them. They could have just gone Batman, Arkham, and it's the stealth-based games, and Batman something else, and that's all beat 'em up and shit, which could then lend itself to co-op, to have Robin and stuff, and still have the same story going between the two. It's just one focusing on the combat side, one's focusing on the stealth side. It would have been perfect.
Yeah, but the stealth side, I think, still needs the co-op too. I think this series direly needs co-op, and it's been proven that stealth co-op works. Again, I point you to Splinter Cell, because the co-op in the latest Splinter Cell Conviction is freaking awesome. It's hard as hell, but it's awesome.
Yep. Which, like I said, that could be cool. My biggest thing with the sandbox thing is everyone wanted to go Batman sandbox. Let's make it like Spider-Man. Let's have him driving around in the Batmobile. I'm like, no, because then that's going to run to Batman running over innocent people. That's not what Batman does. In fact, the best while Gotham is like a big open city and stuff, the thing a lot of people seem to forget with these is Spider-Man is the type of hero that does like the web swinging, goes around the city, he has fun doing his webs, he looks, oh look, there's a civilian in trouble, boom, go and save him and stuff. Batman kind of does that, but his stories aren't about that. His stories are normally him detecting and more of a linear path. That's what these games need.
Yeah, if anything, what they need is they need to focus more on the detective side. They've got the combat down. The combat is fluid. It works for Batman. Now focus on the detective side, and I would say diminish the combat a little bit. Make it not as easy to dispatch a group. But at the same time, if they're going to do that, remove some of the annoyance, because, I'm sorry, annoyance does not equal challenge. And right now, the enemies and the way they have the enemies set up with what enemy types are in the groups, it's more annoyance than challenge. The annoyance is what provides that challenge, and it's an artificial challenge. Because I'm just like, literally the only reason that those fights are even a challenge is because of the enemy types, and they're just annoying. I'm like, no, it's not because they're hard to hit anything. It's because you can't hit them unless you do something else, which then stops the flow of combat. I'm like, oh.
No. I would say that while it's annoying to you, is challenging. The different types of enemies, the having to think about how you act and stuff like that with those people and how you go about the combat, that is a challenge. That is a real difficulty. An artificial challenge is stuff like the Riddler trophies being inserted in there, or, I hate to say this, but like, for example, the wrestling games. You turn up the difficulty, and the only thing that changes is the computer reverses more. They don't act differently, they just reverse more. Mm-hmm. That's artificial challenge. This is challenge because it's difficult. It's an actual difficulty. It's not like cheap difficulty, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but still in these fights, it's like without the shot gloves, I'm sorry, if they're going to keep doing this, I have to say, I'm sorry, Chris, but the shot gloves are needed. Because otherwise, I just don't want to fight. I'm just like, no, this is bullshit. Because
Yeah,
I can't fight like this. I can't fight when I'm sitting here trying to do a combo and it's interrupted because I have to fucking stun someone and try to beat them up without getting my ass handed to me, or do some other crazy thing that just interrupts the flow of combat and I just can't do because it takes too long to do. I'll just get pounced on again. No, fuck that.
and
That to me is not well thought out or well programmed combat. That's just a fucking clusterfuck.
that was my point. You shouldn't want to fight a group of people. You shouldn't want to. You're Batman. You're not Superman. If you want to play a Batman game with easy combat and easy fights, play Lego Batman, which has its fun. It's a good game. If you want a game where you're meant to like not do that crap, you play Batman Arkham Asylum. It's an awesome game. You shouldn't be doing the easy stuff like that.
But that's what I'm
saying. No, I'm saying the shock gloves are basically like Lego with, oh, I've got this, boom, I can instantly kill people with my weapon. No, you should want a real challenge from it. And the fact these people did that, where, okay, I've got to stun this guy, jump over him, attack him here, it's a real challenge.
But you're missing what I'm saying. You're misunderstanding what I'm saying. It comes down to their choice of enemies they're putting into the fight.
I know, that's why
the enemies in Arkham Asylum. The enemies in Arkham Asylum provided a challenge without making it so annoying that you just want to say, fuck this, I'm not going to fight. I never said I don't want to fight in Arkham Asylum, except for one little mini-boss fight, but that's neither here nor there. But it's because of two things. It's because of the enemies they've added or changed through City and Origin, and it's because of the fact that they added a couple of heavy takedowns, if you will, like with the cape stun combos and stuff, that slow the combat down to the point that you can't conceivably use these moves in a combat situation when you're surrounded by enemies, and it's the only way to take out this enemy. And if you don't, again, your combos get interrupted, so you can't actually use your better combat moves. And B, when it gets interrupted, you get stunned, and then they fucking beat you up. And I'm like, no, that's not challenge. That's bullshit. You go to Arkham Asylum, where you actually have to think on your feet about how to dispatch enemies or get them out of the way. Yes, that is a challenge, because when you fight enemies in Arkham Asylum, it does not interrupt the flow of combat like it does in City and Origins. That's what I'm saying. If you're gonna force us to do bullshit like cape stun and then 5-minute beatdown, no, fuck that. I'd rather have the shock gloves, because I can't be arsed to do that, because it's too much of a pain in the ass to set that shit up. Whereas in Arkham Asylum, you don't have the beatdown, which I hate. At first in City, I was like, oh cool, he gets a beatdown, that's fine. No, I fucking hate that beatdown now. That's stupid. Batman should not have that.
I agree, you shouldn't have the combo, but I like the different types of enemies, because it gives you a sense of, okay, I need to assess this while I'm fighting. Okay, that guy's got a shield, that guy's a heavy guy. I'm not gonna fucking go straight for him. In fact, I'm gonna go for the enemies furthest away from him until he's the only one left. That's how I always do it.
Yeah, but if they're gonna do that,
and in fact, I always find the combat with the different enemies piss easy. It's not even a challenge. It's almost like God of War style easy.
Well, then screw you, because I always have a challenge with mixed enemies, because and a huge reason for this is, if you're going to force me to have to strategically do that, give me targeting that fucking works, because half the time, the free flow targeting just doesn't work. Because I'll be like fighting, I'll be like, okay, I want to take this guy out, and all of a sudden I'll go and attack the guy with the armor. I'm like, what the hell? I didn't tell you to attack the guy with the armor.
To be fair, I need to say screw me just because I find the game piss easy. That's like me saying, screw you and your casualness. Go play Angry Birds.
Casualness.
Yes, with I want a one-hit kill button.
I don't want a one-hit kill button. I want a button that allows me to
kill people in one hit.
I pass the annoyance of these enemies, because they're just poorly designed and executed enemies with a flawed targeting system. The enemies in Arkham Asylum, even though Arkham Asylum also had that same problems with the targeting, the enemies weren't designed to basically fucking screw you and punish you because when you target them by accident. No, you don't get that punished. You get punished, of course, obviously, like especially with the shock prod dudes, but you don't get punished to the point where. And then part of that too is because in Arkham Asylum, the groups of enemies weren't as large, whereas in City and Origins, you'll be surrounded by like fucking 20 dudes. I'm sorry. one misstep due to, and we're going to bring the phrase back, goddamn targeting, basically kills half your life. That's not a challenge. That's bullshit. And that's poor programming right there. That's poor design. Whereas in Arkham Asylum, yeah, one misstep will cost you, but it's not going to cost you the entire fight. It's going to hurt you, and it's going to set you back, and you're going to have to rethink the strategy and get back into the fight and figure out how to dispatch the enemies. But it's not going to completely put you on your back and make you say, okay, yeah, I quit.
I'll just to go away from this bit. I'll just say we'll agree to disagree. You think it's poor game design. I just think it's poor game skills on your behalf. Either way, it's fine.
Oh, fuck you.
Well, you're saying it's poor game design and stuff. I just mentioned I had no problems with that.
No, I'm saying fuck you because you're saying it's my fault and my skill that the game doesn't target where it's supposed to fucking target. No, I blame the game. Because if the game was built properly, I'd be able to actually target the right people and not inadvertently hit guys with fucking armor. Or dudes with shields. Or try to attack people with knives who turn around and stab me in the face.
Guys with knives tend to do that.
That's why I tend not to attack them. But the game forces me to attack them because their targeting is bullshit.
See, the reason I said I agreed to disagree with that is because, like I said, I never had that issue. I always managed to target whoever the hell I wanted to whenever you want to. Which, it's fine. Either way, it's fine. Some people may be in the same boat. It's cool. What do you think about the gadgets this time around?
I expected more, actually, to be honest. But,
yep.
But of course that's... Go ahead.
We touched upon the main one, which was the shock gloves, the one-hit kill button thing. Everything else was recycled, to the point where I even mentioned when I was playing with the Crispy, I refused to call the glue grenade, because it looks like ice, it acts like ice, it's Mr. Freeze's freeze grenade, it's ice grenade.
Pretty much. The problem this game had with its gadgets is the same problem City had, although City didn't have as many because they had more gadgets, so it evened out. And it's the fact that this game, Origins, like City, starts you with like half your gadgets. And
Yep.
Whereas with Asylum, you started with like your batarangs. That was it. Which I like. Yep. I like that he had to acquire his gadgets because he didn't have it on him, which works. Whereas in this game, you have the Batcave, so obviously you have your gadgets, but it's like it takes. And maybe it's the old school gamer in me because I'm a huge like Legend of Zelda fan, Metroid, Castlevania, where you start with nothing and you have to acquire your shit. And this game is like, here's half your shit, have fun. It's like, really?
I want to insert a you found joke, but I can't be bothered. I was just gonna say, yeah, I agree, especially with this game. Arkham City, okay, fair enough. He went in prepared. It was annoying, but fair enough. Arkham Asylum, like you said, he got the stuff late and it made sense. This game, if it's his origin, it would have been a lot cooler if we'd seen the origin of how he learned to get those attacks. Like, let's say he's against Firefly, he sees Firefly using those flying enemies, and he sees him using all this flying technology. He's like, oh, you know what? That gives me an idea. And when he beats him, he requires some of it. You see him physically go back and like do like schematics or whatever, even if it's via cutscene, and he programs it, and that's how he makes the remote batarang.
What I would have loved for them to do is to have you fight the enemies twice, the villains. You go into the fight once. Batman, depending on the enemy, maybe can hold his own, maybe can't, but for the most part gets his ass kicked. But then learns from the fight, and that's how he develops his gadget. Because, like you said, when you said Firefly, that gave me the idea of you go in to fight Firefly, like say before the bridge thing, and Batman realizes he's flying around. Batman doesn't fly; he has no way of getting airborne. I've got batarangs with rope, but that's not fast enough to catch him. I need something faster. I need a grapple gun.
So what you're saying is Batman needs to go against Firefly, and he needs to teach him that you can't take the sky from me.
But then after that fight, Firefly gets away, and then and Batman throughout the game, he's always working on these gadgets or whatever. There's always, because they establish he's got a friggin' workbench in the, in the Batcave. And then when it gets to the point where where Firefly is taking over the bridge and stuff, Batman's like, all right, time to bust this out. You go back to the Batcave, you acquire the Batclaw, and that's the genesis of the Batclaw. Is he needs a way for himself to ground Firefly or to otherwise grab onto Firefly so he can actually do something to him.
Yep. It's like I personally think this story, unfortunately, happened later than what it should have.
What do you mean?
At the point the story takes place, and fair enough, he hasn't made the car yet. Yay. We don't have to drive around it yet, but...
See, I disagree with that. I wish he had... It didn't make sense to me that he had the plane and not the car.
Yeah.
Because since they used a fast travel system, I think it would have been far cooler and made much more sense if you fast traveled with the Batmobile, but that's just me.
Yeah, I agree that it would have made more sense to have the that way. However, I didn't want free driving and shit like people would demand. However, I was saying, he hasn't made the Batmobile yet. Yay. However, he shouldn't have made, as I was about to say before you interrupted me, he shouldn't have made the Bat yet, as they called it in the later games. In the third film, instead of the Batwing, he hasn't made the Bat yet. He shouldn't have made most of his gadgets. He shouldn't have even set up most of the Batcave. This would have been so much cooler if this was Batman. Essentially in the Batman Begins like role of he's just arrived back and this is Batman's very first mission as Batman. And then we can see him slowly capture more gadgets and stuff as he goes along. That would have been so much cooler than, oh yeah, he's been Batman long enough, you got all the gadgets, but not long enough that people actually, that villains feel he's a threat. It's like, what?
Yeah. And he's got all these gadgets, but he doesn't have a Batmobile? Really?
Yeah.
It's like, he's protecting one city, and the vehicle he thinks he needs the most is a plane, not a car. Really?
Yep, which it makes no sense.
Yeah. And also with the way they were trying to portray Batman with this story, it felt like to me the story they wanted to tell was the one that you wanted them to tell of Batman first coming back, yet they set this 2 years after he comes back, which makes no sense. Because, like, if it's been 2 years, there should be more of these established villains instead of we're only now establishing the supervillains. 2 years out, and you're only now establishing supervillains? Really? What have they been doing for 2 years? Seriously.
He had Calendar Man.
Huh.
He must have had Calendar Man if he's in it got a cell. But
I suppose.
But no, you meant actual credible villains, not Calendar Man.
Exactly.
I mean, who's next? White Rabbit. But no, yeah, we should have had, like you said, it should have been more like I mentioned, starting off the year one thing, and it should have been a lot more. These are the first times these villains have come about, or stuff like that, and it'd be cooler. Like, do you remember? Well, obviously you do. Do you remember Batman the Animated Series? Mm-hmm.
Yes.
More. Yeah, that did it because it was in a similar time from the comics at the Origins part, is what I was getting at. Where if we go on a mission against, say, like we go on a mission against Clayface, let's say, if he appears in the game, let's say we go against Clayface. The beginning of the mission and the beginning of the story should all be how Clayface comes about too, if it's Origins. It should be, we should see the origin of the villains and stuff and set them off as like mini stories. Like, essentially, I'm thinking of making. I think Batman Arkham Origins should be an anthology of stories. If it makes sense, like the first one should be like the Bane story, or the first one should be Black Mask. Let's say, to go that route, and then like you could even do the next one is Bane. Then after that, you could do the month or the year, or whatever you want to say, of Azrael, and let you play as Azrael as much shit as he is, just so you can then do Batman come back and overthrow Bane.
Mm-hmm. True. That would be interesting.
Yeah, it'd be awesome. But let's go on to the next part then. What did you think about multiplayer?
What I played of it was actually kind of fun. I wish I could have played as Batman, but yeah, busted multiplayer. Though I did get to play as Robin, and that was amazingly fun. More fun than I thought it was going to be.
Well, I'm going to say that's not a busted multiplayer. You don't deserve to be Batman. You're a Robin.
Screw you.
You're even appearing right now in my show as my sidekick. I rest my case.
Yeah. The other thing I wish I could have done is actually try out the different gadgets for the different factions, because I just got enough experience to actually unlock some of the gadgets for the factions, and because the multiplayer is so busted, I kind of stopped playing the multiplayer, because I was like, I don't have the time to sit on my ass for like 2 hours trying to get into a game and only play half of it, because after the first round is over, the host decides to leave, and the shitty ass multiplayer servers can't reconcile changing hosts.
Yep, and it's also worth pointing out, because this is also a review, because how the multiplayer works we should talk about as
True.
well. I loved how the multiplayer works. If you're playing as Bane's people or you're playing as Joker's people, essentially speaking, it plays like the Star Wars Battlefront games. It's a third-person tactical shooter type, or shooter, with you having to get objectives and stuff like that. But at the same time, you're not like a hero big guy. You're more like just a regular thug.
Yeah, basically the Bane and Joker side, and it's only Bane and Joker thugs. It's basically a gang war. Basically, when you're there in those roles, it's basically what is it called? It's like Gotham City imposters.
Well, kind of. Gotham City Imposters was Team Fortress with a new paint job. But this is more like that, I meant. But which is cool, but it's like, and the heroes, like on Battlefront, where you got them after so many kills or whatever, you get them on this. After so many kills, you can then go and knock on a door and out come Bane. But you can then play, and then that person then plays as Bane, whoever knocked on the door, which is cool. However, if you're playing as Batman and Robin, it's a stealth-based takedown game. That's kind of, and they're both going on at the same time. I haven't seen something like that in multiplayer before.
Yeah.
Which it's an interesting multiplayer. They've done a damn good job. If it worked, if it worked, they would have got probably the most interesting multiplayer mode this year.
Yeah.
Because, in my opinion, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying it's the best multiplayer game. I mean, stuff like Battlefield, for example, has come out and I played the beta of that. Cool game, explosions and stuff like that. But it's still the same type of gameplay or same types of modes you find in those games, which is cool. Same thing with the wrestling. Same thing with any of the other multiplayer games that come out this year that you play. Like Grand Theft Auto didn't even do too much new with multiplayer. It's still the same type of thing. This is a brand new type of multiplayer I've not seen before much, or I haven't seen it at all really. And I don't think there's been one. There may have been, but where you have a tactical game going on at the same time as a death match, it's kind of cool.
It is. It would also probably be worthwhile to mention that for Batman and Robin, and you only get Batman and Robin, which is kind of, I wish you could choose like Nightwing instead of Robin or something if you want to play as Nightwing. But the way you play them, it's basically the Arkham games. It's how Batman plays, except with limited gadgets. That's literally what it is.
Yep.
And instead of AI, you're going up against people.
Should also be worth pointing out, the multiplayer is definitely 100% not canon.
Yeah, I agree.
The reason I say it's definitely not canon, Dick is established as the first Robin throughout the games, and not via collectibles or anything like that where they can discard later. He's redeemed as Robin when we've seen him, we've met him and stuff. It's cool. However, multiplayer, you're playing as Tim. Yeah. And yet Robin hasn't come around yet at the time of this game. We still haven't had Dick yet. So it's like, you're now playing as Tim. It was an excuse so they could recycle the models and the costumes and stuff for the various unlocks from Arkham City. They could just take all the ones from that for Robin and just paste them over it.
And having said that, I'd also like to say I'm kind of disappointed that there's multiplayer only skins for Batman, because I think every skin in the game you should be able to use in story mode, like the animated series skin. Even though it really wouldn't fit, I'd still use that. Or
Hey,
the Arkham skins. Hello, it's an Arkham game.
he's gonna use armor he hasn't yet acquired.
Yes. Well, it's the end of it's you for post game.
I'm
It's after
kidding.
beating
It's
the
new game.
game.
Yeah, it's new game plus, so it doesn't matter because new game plus is about playing in costumes he hasn't used before.
Well, New Game Plus, and also if you just continue your regular game, it's technically speaking after the end of the game, so you could actually technically say he developed these armors in response to what he just faced.
Yep. But going by that, we'll then go on to possibly the last piece of. Was there anything else you wanted to address? You already partly addressed them, but did you want to talk more about the voice acting or anything else you wanted to address a little
Yeah,
bit?
let's talk a little bit about the voice acting and sound in general. Not much in terms of other sound, other music or anything. Kind of generic stuff, ambient noises and stuff. But the voice acting was actually, for the most part, really good. I don't know the voice actor's name, so I apologize in advance. The guy who voiced Batman is quite possibly the best Batman voice I've ever heard.
Yep, I've said that.
Because his Batman voice is effectively Christian Bale's Batman voice done right.
Yep, and he has this distinctive Bruce Wayne voice, which that gives him points over the animated one. Which me and Marcus disagreed on that, but it's cool. Different people hear different things. I even preferred the new Joker voice over current Mark Hamill Joker. Not over animated series, but over Arkham games.
I can kind of agree with that. He did a good job. He did it as a tick to Mark Hamill, which makes sense considering the established Joker of this universe is voiced by Mark Hamill, so the voice kind of still has to sound kind of similar. But I like what he's done with the character. The voice I really loved, my favorite voice of the entire voice cast, would probably have to be Alfred. The guy who voices Alfred did an amazing job. And whoever wrote the lines for Alfred, yeah, he's totally Alfred.
He is. My only complaint with that was I thought they kind of did something a little too on the nose with Alfred.
Oh?
The voice was awesome. The part that was a little on the nose for me was they basically recreated the whole scene from Batman Dark Knight Rises. They recreated the whole Alfred arguing with him because they almost said the same stuff. It's like you couldn't have written better lines, better stuff, or better drama than almost rehashing that same scene. Because it felt like they were doing it as a response to that, not because, yes, they've argued and stuff in the past in comics and stuff, but it felt more like that scene than it did the other arguments they've had.
Fair enough. I can kind of see that.
You know which scene I was on about?
The one where he's like, I refuse to sit here and let you go kill yourself?
Yep, which is almost the same thing as Batman The Dark Knight Rises with I've looked after you since you were a little boy. I'm not gonna sit here and watch and not know you're coming back type thing. It's like, oh, stop it.
Yeah, but I thought the game did it better.
The game did it better only because in the game it didn't seem like it came out of nowhere.
Yeah, there was the whole build up because you see Alfred struggle with it the entire game of how far can I be pushed? How far do I let him go before I put my foot down and say no? I'm not going to sit here and watch you go out anymore.
You know a teaser I would have loved at the end of this with that?
What's that?
I absolutely would have loved it if okay, we didn't get the scene in there or something like that, but I would have loved it even if it was like the end of the series, the end of the game.
Mm-hmm.
Would have been cool to see Dick.
I agree.
It would have been cool to see like Batman taking in a show, seeing Dick's parents die or whatever in front of you with Batman. That would have been cool just because I think that would have been awesome to have Alfred be the one to tell Batman, you should help him out. Because then that would make Batman see things how Alfred sees things. So it'd be cool to make Alfred convince Batman to do that. That'd be a nice little touch. But they didn't. But oh well.
But yeah, the one voice I hated was Gordon's voice. I did not like his voice because I did not think that voice befit Gordon. I actually, and I can't believe I'm going to say this, I actually preferred the voice actor for Gordon from the other two games. And I can't believe I'm saying that because I did not like that voice either, but I thought he was a better Gordon.
I had no problem. I had no real issues with Gordon. It worked for the role he was in, if that makes sense. But I can understand because different people like different voices.
But the rest of the voices were good. Like I said, Bane's voice was spot on. Copperhead's voice was awesome. I love that voice.
Penguin,
Harley, did they use the same voice actress for Harley? Did they use Tara for Harley?
I'm not sure. They may have.
Because
But what
that
about
voice
Penguin?
was pretty spot on. Penguin, I think you said they didn't use the same voice actor, but they still used the Cockney accent.
Yeah, they still use
Which,
the Cockney accent. Which
for the way they're trying to portray him works. I personally don't like the Cockney accent for Penguin, but I guess it works for the version of Penguin they're trying to portray.
Yeah, I mentioned that because I know you mentioned before you didn't like the Cockney Penguin voice, so I figured I'd give you a soapbox to stand on or whatever.
Yeah, I don't know. It just to me doesn't fit the Penguin. But like you mentioned, they're going for more of the crime boss Penguin, which I guess Cockney accent, and I think it would make more sense if I were British or if I knew British culture, because as you pointed out, and you can correct me if I get any of this wrong, over there in merry old England, Cockney accents are usually associated with whoever the British mob are. They're associated with British gangsters.
Well, yeah,
So it makes more sense for a mob boss to have a Cockney accent in British culture.
Like I said, kind of. I mean, you get non gangster Cockneys and stuff as well, but as a rule, in most films most British films, when it's like the New York not New York, like the London East End gangsters and shit like that, it's like, you know what I mean? They always talk like the Cockney accent, which it makes sense because it's more of a common man's voice. It's more of a common working class, I'm gonna kill you type voice.
Right.
So it works.
Yeah, which from the backstory of that, if I knowing that, it makes sense. Just to me, it doesn't sound right coming out of the Penguin. That's all, at least to me.
Yep.
The rest of the voices were serviceable and or good. So I have, and that's the one thing I can say about all three of these games. The voice cast for all three of these games have been very strong. So, and it continues to be strong. So I'm pleased to see that the voice cast did well this go around.
The voice cast did well, and also I'll also add, I preferred the visuals. The visuals look pretty damn good, and the cutscenes and stuff, it looked awesome. Like when Batman took off his hood for the first time, you see Bruce Wayne. It's like that looked cool.
Yeah. Although, did they really have to go with the liquid cape again?
Why not?
If they want to go with a cape that you're supposed to be able to use as a glider cape, as much as I hate to say it, I much would have rather preferred to see something akin to the memory cloth from the movies. I think that would look a lot better than the liquid cape.
I like the memory cloth.
It was a cool concept, yes.
It was an actual concept.
This is true. It's an army concept, but yeah.
Yeah, but it's an actual concept. They based it on real life, which that does exist.
Well, I'm talking about the material, though. I wasn't too keen on the material, the way that it looked.
Yeah, but the liquid stuff, it's like, yeah, I can kind of see that. I had no problem with that, though. My biggest thing was I got thrown off at first with the... One of the things I got thrown off a little bit at first with the waypoints.
Waypoints?
The waypoints. When you go to do a mission and it points up into the sky with where you're supposed to go with the bat symbol.
Mm-hmm.
On the night, with how it looked in this game, it looked like the bat symbol. I was like, wait, that didn't exist yet. Why is the bat symbol here? It took me a while to realise, wait, that's not the bat symbol. That's where you're meant to go. Okay, fair enough.
I said the same thing. I was like, is that the bat symbol? Oh, no, wait, that's just the waypoint marker.
Yeah. I'm not the only one that thought that at first.
Well, because of the coloration and the transparency of it, it does genuinely look like the bat signal.
Yep. But I think we can call it quits for now. I think we covered everything. We gave our score. Mine was 6 out of 10. Marcus's was 6.5, I believe.
Yes.
So, I was your host, Chriz, aka Mole, and join us again in the future. Coming up, we're going to have the wrestling review, which will also be done via podcast. I would also offer a welcome, if you will, or an invitation to Marcus to come on one of these during November, and let's discuss possibility of some DC games or some comic games we would like to see in the future and how we would like to see them go about making them. Because I think that could be fun since we almost went off on a tangent on this one with that.
Right, and who do we like to see make the games, like publisher and developer?
Yeah, I'll do that as a Gaming Zone roundtable podcast thing.
Sure, that'd be fun.
Yeah. So, I was your host, Chris A. Mole. He was Marcus Shadow.
Yep, thank you for having me.
And see ya.
And stop.